Maine and the rest of the country are starting to pay renewed attention to our history as we approach next year's 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Recently, Maine's General Henry Knox Museum found a piece of its collection nobody had noticed before. It ties together two heroes of the Revolution. 207's Don Kerrigan decided he had to see it for himself.
The elegant Knox Mansion stands high above coastal Route 1, seen by millions over the years, though most never stop to visit.
Let's head into the withdrawing room here.
Those who do take the tour learn that the house is a replica, a detailed recreation of the original. But the man for whom it is named was surely as original as they come.
I think he's absolutely a person who needs to be remembered because he was so critical to our freedoms. Henry was...
James Jenko has been studying General Henry Knox for years.
What they actually called it a waste book.
And gives tours of the Knox Mansion in Thomaston. Here they preserve and share the fascinating history of an underappreciated hero of the American Revolution.
Yeah. And he was young.
He was only 23 years old when he left Boston and left his thriving business. And today, when we are so focused on kind of the what's in it for me, it's a little bit like Kennedy's, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do. Knox really, I think, is the embodiment of that.
Born and raised in Boston and mostly self-educated by reading, Henry Knox had studied books about cannons and artillery before joining the Army to kick the British out of Massachusetts.
I was listening recently to a talk by David McCulloch about Boston, and he mentioned that without Knox and his efforts to bring the cannon back to Boston, the Bostonians would be having tea in the afternoon with scones. And that might be a little overstated, but he certainly was very, very important to finally driving the British out of Boston and many, many of the campaigns throughout the war.
He says Knox and Washington became close friends as well as fellow generals, and when Washington became the country's first president, he chose Henry Knox to be his Secretary of War.
It just struck me that this is quite a remarkable thing.
Which is why James Jenko, now the museum's curator, became excited when he found two small pieces of paper tucked away in the archives, a treasure seemingly overlooked for years.
First of all, why did this attract your attention?
Because it was a letter from General Washington, but then President Washington, to Knox. And I had not seen any correspondence between the two.
It's just a memo from the president to Knox, but written, Jenko has no doubt, by Washington himself.
This is General Washington writing, and he says, "Pray send me the papers I put into your hand yesterday respecting Indian matters. I want to put them into the hands of the Attorney General from whom they were received." And then it's his initials and then GW. And it's on the envelope is addressed to Major General Knox.
The contents may not be significant, but for the museum, this letter is priceless. They do have another written message from Washington to Knox, but it's an official document appointing him as Secretary of War. This newly found letter is the museum's only personal message between Knox and Washington.
So it's been well cared for, but it was just among a lot of other communications and documents that related to the Knox family. So it just caught me when I saw the GW. He didn't even sign his whole name, he just signs GW.
We're going to head over into...
Visitors to the museum haven't seen the letter yet. Eventually, they will.
The idea is not to unnecessarily, touch them, but they can be lifted up.
He did show us, though I couldn't touch it.
But very, very, very fragile.
Yeah.
Fragile indeed, and the letter must be carefully preserved and protected before it can be displayed. After leaving Washington's cabinet, Henry Knox and his wife moved to Maine, where they had a huge tract of land. He built the original house here in Thomaston, about a mile away on the St. George River. Knox started several businesses in shipping, timber, and other things, but he died of an infection at age 56. His home eventually fell to ruin and was torn down, but in the 20th century, a local group raised the money and built a near-exact replica to honor Knox and keep his memory alive. Now, this small letter comes as a treasured reminder of the man himself.
I think he really deserves a lot more credit than he gets for the instrumental part he played in freeing this country, winning our independence.
On the eve of our country's 250th birthday, a message from one of America's creators to another.
There is a lot to see at the museum, as well as the building itself, which gives an interesting look into how some people lived 200 plus years ago. The General Henry Knox Museum is open this fall, Fridays and Saturdays, and closes for the season after Columbus Day weekend.